All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We are going to talk a little bit about learner-centric approach to development. My name is Katie Oze, and I'm the lead instructional designer for the services team at Learn On Demand Systems. And I'm joined today with Stephanie Clark. Stephanie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Stephanie Clark. I'm an instructional designer with Learn On Demand Systems, and I am happy to be here to talk with everybody.
All right. So quick reminder that we are looking forward to seeing you on our social media sites. So please snap a picture, show us where you're at and what sessions you're joining in on, post it to LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and you'll be able to win a gift card by doing so. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. So in this session, we have 3 objectives we're going to be covering. First, we want to talk a little bit about how to effectively balance business goals and learner needs for sound instructional strategy. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how to craft objectives that gain learner buy-in. And then finally, a little bit about adding challenges and assessments so that you can gauge whether your learner has gained enough of a knowledge transfer, as well as other data points that are pretty helpful. So we're going to just jump right in. So let's start at the beginning. Any business putting out training content for their staff wants to have training that has a valuable impact. The best way to see that impact is to focus on what the learner needs. If their needs are met, then they're more likely to retain information and make valuable changes to their work that reflects what they've learned. If you approach design of training with the perspective of the learner and meet their needs, then they're more likely to engage deeply with that content and the knowledge transfer instantly becomes stickier. By tracking learner needs alongside established business goals and measuring the outcomes from both, you have a solid grasp of ROI for everyone's effort. However, it's easy to lose the learner in the design process of training. There are so many components to consider, but we've broken it down to 4 steps that we think should help. Luckily, there are a few steps you can follow to ensure the learner is forefront in your design process. So first, you want to identify the business needs and the learner needs early in the process, side by side. Second, you'll want to combine findings from both business goals and learner needs to create sound objectives that speak to both parties. Ensure your learners know early on what they're getting into. Get that buy-in. Third, you want to rely on relevant experience-driven learning techniques. And then finally, don't script on assessment. There are lots of ways to assess learner success and business success to get the data you need to gauge value. We'll show you a little more about that in a bit.
Okay, so throughout this session, we're going to be referring to a case study that'll help us illustrate what we're covering. Let's briefly introduce our organization, their situation, and their current training goal. Cloudductions has changed the main application their data team uses. Therefore, they're going to need to reskill this new team or this team on the new application. They have 15 data analysts and engineers on that team. So this is what we know. But when does the business need this team working efficiently in the new app? What is the rollout schedule? Why is the business making this change? Etc. These are the questions we'll ask that'll help frame the project. What kind of skills do the current team already have? Do these skills overlap with the new app? If which ones? What new skills do they need to use the new app? These questions provide context for the content and approach of the project. We will start with framing the project, then we will concentrate on answering the learner questions.
Great, so step 1, we're going to analyze the business and the learner. While we advocate for learner-centric development, we still need to know what the business goal is. Using the business goals to map to learner goals provides context to the learner and to the training content. This results in 3 main benefits. First, you obtain buy-in from your learner. Adult learners need to understand the reason they should spend their valuable time on training content. Without that understanding upfront, learners are less likely to fully engage. We've all been in that situation where the training videos are just playing in the background while we get our more important work done. No one wants that wasted time, effort, resource, or budget in a training that only accomplishes background noise. Second, you're able to quantify results for measurable data. Data is king, and that is just as true in training development as anywhere else. Businesses need data to make decisions on budget, future planning, and a host of other decisions. Without a deep understanding of the effectiveness of training, those decisions are hard to make with any accuracy. Did the training reach its goals? We don't know that without measurable objectives. The data is equally important for the learner. Did they achieve the goal of the training? Did they understand what their goal was from the beginning? Finally, you can create effective training based on learner needs. Treat your learners' needs as another data point that's valuable to you. The more you know about their needs, the better the training will be, the more engagement you'll get, and the better results you will see and be able to measure. Let's talk a little bit about defining that learner. It's not always enough to know that the learner is part of a specific team or that they fall under a specific profession or industry. For example, technical consultant only tells me so much as a designer. I need to know more. First, I want to know, why are they taking this course and why is it valuable to them? While they need to know that to gain buy-in, I also need to know that to be able to define the content within that particular piece of training. What kind of background do they have? And what level of experience? That might be really valuable when creating activities and other types of content so that I'm speaking to them directly. And then finally, do they have any other related skills that might be worthwhile to incorporate into the relevant applications and other types of content that we'll be creating? The more I know, the easier it'll be to meet where they are, give them content they relate to, and find accessible and contextual.
Okay, now that we know how to define our business goals and who our learners really are, let's revisit that case study. What kind of changes do we need to make to our business goals based on the analysis we've done? First, when do we need the training completed by and who will be trained? Well, we know it only needs to be delivered to the data analysts by next quarter. Why do we want the data analysts to take the course? We want to maintain consistent reporting styles and usability, as well as maintain reporting accuracy in the new app. Why would the data analyst want to take this course? They will want to work efficiently to meet their deadlines. All of this helps us frame that goal. And what have we learned about the data analyst that impact our project? Well, first, why are they taking this course? Their job responsibilities are to produce reports weekly, monthly, and quarterly on business metrics for other teams. And these reports need to be formatted in a manner the other teams are familiar with. So their own metrics are going to make them want to take the course. What kind of backgrounds do they have? What level of experience? All of our analysts have either worked in the previous app or similar apps for some time. That means we can tie into that prior knowledge. Do they have other related skills? Since the new system has some commonalities with the current system, we can leverage that prior knowledge to help make the content more relevant to them. And these answers help us design the objectives, the approach, and the content so it's relevant to our learners and important to them. So the next step is to work on objectives.
That's right. So now we're going to define objectives based on that analysis. Before we start writing objectives, which act as our roadmap through development, we need to understand what level of learning we're trying to accomplish. Think of this as defining the scope. We don't want to boil the ocean, as our project managers like to tell us all the time. As you can see, we have four levels: engagement, knowledge, changed behavior, and business performance. And they often build on each other. For example, a positive engagement can lead to deeper learning, which can lead to successful changes in behavior, which impacts performance positively. But sometimes learning is enough. Let's say I'm in sales and I have a new product I need to sell. Gaining knowledge on that new product wouldn't necessarily correlate to a change in my performance. So I don't need a level of learning that is trying to accomplish that. And if the objectives I read indicate that my sales numbers need to improve based on increased that product. I might even be nervous going into that kind of training. So let's right size the effort for everyone involved. To do this, draft objectives based on the quantified business goal and defined learner metrics. Use action verbs that match the level of learning and the course will be targeting. Detail the conditions that affect the desired performance and ensure that measurable criteria is indicated for actions. By building objectives this way, you are communicating effectively with the learner and not just reflecting the content. This sets the expectation for the learner about the training and helps promote their buy-in.
Now it's time to put all of this analysis and planning to work on the case study objectives. So here are what objectives might have looked like based on our original goal. And then I'm going to show you what they'll look like now that we know what our learners need to accomplish, where they're starting from, and what learning level is expected from the outcome. So the first bad objective, learn about data model creation. This becomes create data models in a new app for their teams. Second, work with data types and null. Becomes employ appropriate data types and null for new reports. Third, learn how to work with various data formats with the new app, including JSON, HTML, and Microsoft Excel worksheets. Not bad, but better would be use existing data formats in the new reports, including JSON, HTML, MS Excel worksheets. Finally, have an intermediate skill level in the new app. Be better, design reports in the new app consistent with the current reports on existing metrics. Notice how the after objectives provide active verbs and more context for the learner in their current job, relying on their existing skills to apply their new knowledge of the new app. These objectives will guide our content design to engage our learners.
All right, that brings us to step 3, personalize the experience for your learner. So now we're in the design process. We've defined our learners and identified our objectives. Now we need to actually teach them. So first, let's talk about creating experiences. Rely on your learner's environment that they already incorporate demos, exercises, and examples. Wherever possible, we want to give context to the theories, actions, processes, and other types of content that we're teaching. Then we focus on presenting content in different ways. Everyone learns differently, but additionally, everyone enjoys variety. Employ several different kinds of activities. You can make use of labs, videos, documentation, or even links out to other information. Again, you want to rely on context that resonates with the learner. You can also use every opportunity for a learning experience. For example, including feedback in assessments for right and wrong answers is a primary opportunity to double down on knowledge gain and stickiness of the content. Lastly, we'll want to focus on solutions that work for your learner. You want to allow learners an opportunity to apply their knowledge. Give them a safe space to fail or succeed that is relevant to what they need to successfully accomplish post training. A couple ways to do this include a simulation, or participants can create an end-to-end product demonstration that proves their ability to apply the knowledge. Or you can use challenge labs or performance-based testing to supply the learner with immediate feedback on their skill gain.
Since we now know more about our learners and we want to provide real-world context through several types of activities, let's take a look at what the plan looks like for Clouductions. So we're going to be creating real-life experiences tied to the quantified objectives we wrote before, using hands-on activities, knowledge checks, and using branching to give the learners some freedom to choose their path. We'll present the content more than one way by using slides, videos, and recordings. In addition, the knowledge checks will provide immediate feedback on right and wrong answers, but will not be graded or count towards completion. Makes it a little more relaxed for the user. Finally, we're going to focus on solutions that work for our defined personas using a challenge lab after each module that resembles a report they already use. These labs provide practice with a safe place to fail. Finally, the pass-fail assessment at the end provides the learners immediate feedback on their skill gained and helps them to have a sticky experience. This leads us into our final assessment and evaluation period.
All right, so now we're going to incorporate that learner assessment and business evaluation. So we've completed and delivered our training. What's next? Did it stick? First, let's revisit why we're evaluating. First, we want to know, did the learner meet their objectives? And in turn, were the business goals met? There are a couple ways to assess training to answer these questions. First, we have immediate knowledge and skill assessment. Example of this would be a quiz or a challenge lab used within the training content. But do they continue to apply that knowledge is something else we want to know. So this is where we'd use some on-the-job evaluation to measure 30 to 90 days out whether they're implementing the content that they learned about. You can use rubrics and surveys to accomplish this one. And then finally, we want to measure whether business goals were met. And to do this, we can work through performance metrics and manager and stakeholder feedback. Again, surveys are useful here. These are just some useful ways to assess whether training was valuable for the learner and for the business. Regardless of what approach you take, assessment is proven to be highly valuable in creating future performance solutions.
So how did Cloud Actions implement the assessment and evaluation? To gauge the knowledge gained after the course, as mentioned prior, we used hands-on challenge assessment. All the analysts passed that assessment. Woohoo! 3 months later, we surveyed our managers and the analyst, as well as reviewed the analyst performance based on a rubric. It was determined that all but one of the analysts were efficiently creating reports in the new app. The apps were consistent with the reports from the old apps. The one analyst who was slower in creating reports, and they were not as accurate or as readable. In his and his manager surveys, there were comments that he was struggling with the data models and using existing data formats in the new app. Further probing determined that he had the basics, but was lacking confidence to perform consistently under deadline pressure. That's going to help us later on. 6 months later, performance of the downstream stakeholders was analyzed via surveys and data. It was found that there was no drop-off in the accuracy or efficiency of decision-making by these teams that were using the reports. They rarely contacted the data analysts for clarification on the reports. So what are our conclusions? Well, the first conclusion from the evaluation at the 3-month time frame was that job aids and mentoring should be provided to the one data analyst that will help reinforce his knowledge. Will also have their skills reinforced by helping. The second conclusion, after the 6-month one, was that the course was successful in reaching both the business goals and the learner goals. Cloud Actions now have more confidence in training and the impact it can have on business goals when developed using a learner-centric approach.
Okay, so let's recap a little bit here. Just to refresh everybody's memory, we started with how to effectively balance business goals with learner needs for sound instructional strategy. We then crafted some objectives that help gain learner buy-in. And then finally, we talked a little bit about how to include challenges and assessment so that you have a better understanding of the learner's increased knowledge and knowledge transfer, as well as how the business goals were impacted. Any questions?
Come on, guys, you gotta have some.
All right, we've got a shy crowd, so we can move on. Just a few resources for you. If you're interested in learning more about our services team, we'd love to hear from you. Please check out the links on the screen to get in contact with us and learn a little bit more about what we're doing here. Be sure to share your feedback through the evaluation. We want to hear what you have to say and how this could maybe improve future sessions that we'll have. And then finally, make sure to post that picture on social media and tag us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys.